Thanks, right on time. Call the EUB board meeting back to work.
The city council will now convene in open session.
All right, the elevators, everybody signed up for item 6. All right, brings us to item 7, approve the minutes for the regular EUB meeting as of on September 17, 2019.
Second.
Motion is second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, by the same. Motion carries. We're now going to move to item number 12, which is to consider a resolution recommending the city council take necessary action to amend Article 2.03, Division 12 of the City of Lubbock Code of Ordinances, increasing the number of terms that may be served by the EUB members and removing the duty to recommend individuals to the West Texas Municipal Power Agency. Motion for that discussion.
So much.
In a second.
Sorry.
All right, discussion there. If not, go ahead and take a vote. I need all those in favor of that resolution. It's in your packet. By motion or by aye. In favor?
Aye.
All those opposed by the same. All right, that passes. So now I'll turn it over to the Electric Utility Board will participate in the city council meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The city council will consider a resolution to accept the recommendation of the EUB to amend Article 2.03, Division 12 of the City of Lubbock Code of Ordinances by increasing the number of terms that may be served by electric utility board members and removing the duty to recommend individuals to the board of the West Texas Municipal Power Agency, and to direct staff to take all actions required by Article 2.03, Division 12 to effectuate, said proposed ordinance. What? Effectuate. Staff has provided us the resolution. They have provided us the resolution from the council members. Has everybody read it?
Yes, sir.
Yes. You understand it? Mayor Pro Tem, I'll make a motion to approve. Thank you, Mr. Massey. Is there a second? Thank you, Ms. George. All those to approve item 3.6.1, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you.
I was pointing.
It's the same exhibit, Councilman, as I referred to, sorry, 115, 117, and 190 back up. It will be attached.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Jordan. Thank you, Mr. Weed. Mr. Chairman.
Sure. Thank you all. All right, that'll bring us back into Mr. McCall, presentation discussion. Reports. Item 8.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We'll give a couple of highlights in the written report. Try to respond to any questions you might have. On page 19, there's a report always includes some things that we've got on our social media, and we had one story that I was impressed with. We've got a employee, Kista Jones, whose son is quarterback for Estacado, and I think they're doing pretty well. So there's the story on her and her son. Received an overwhelming number of positive responses, 11,459. I think that might be a record. I'm not sure we've ever had that many before. So that was a really good story.
It's actually 23,000.
23,000. So we've got a tremendous response to that story. On page 23, there's some other social media highlights. Of course, we've got two Facebook sites. We've got the Lubbock Power Line and we've got the City of Lubbock Utilities Facebook. So the City of Lubbock Utilities site, we continue to post updates of the AMI progress and shared energy savings tips from other city departments and promoting Helping Hand. You'll also see things like the bulky items and brush do not go in the alley. So we promote the other utilities messages as we have our food. on page 25. I wanted to mention that the September bar for the outage report, which is the third chart on the right-hand side there, we didn't have a great September in terms of outages, but in thinking about the month, I didn't really think we didn't have any major outages during the month, so it was kind of surprising to me. But we had a number of thunderstorm days, September 20th and September 21st. We had 4 inches of rain over those 2 days, a lot of lightning and thunderstorms associated with those, and high winds. And then September 28th, we had over an inch of rain. For the month of September, we've had 6 inches of rain, which is pretty good rainfall for September. Of course, with that comes lightning, with that comes blown fuses and tree problems as well. So that was the reason for the uptick in outages in September. On page 26, you may notice I normally don't talk about the rates graph because usually Andy and his group do that, but I would point out that our rates fell below all of them that we tracked this month, so we were below everyone that we normally track for the month of August, and of course a lot of that had to do with our fuel cost reduction for the months of August and September. So happy about that. On the customer service recap on page 27, we did hit our key performance indicators for the month of September with an average wait time of 18 seconds, service level of 91.78%, and an abandon rate of 3.3%. So it's pretty good results for September. And we added another 217 customers to paperless billing for a total of over 22,000 customers that are now using paperless billing. So there's some cost savings associated with that, and I know our folks are pushing that pretty hard as they have opportunity to encourage people to go paperless. On page 30, there's an AMI report. We're over halfway through on the electric side, 52.6% complete. And we've started receiving commercial meters too, which was holding up closing some of the routes, but we've started getting commercial meters in, so finish up some of the early routes that we had started there. And if you look at the electric meter deployment graph on page 31, you can see that we're well above, at least for the most recent week, we're well above the target deployment level. So I think the additional staffing that Itron has brought in is really starting to pay off. We're still lagging a little on the water meters, but I think the additional staff that has been brought in should hopefully get that turned around. If there's any questions on AMI, we've got our AMI and CIS experts here as well.
Question was covered.
There's not a water.
Go ahead.
What is our date on AMI? When are we trying to get 52, 6 months away? It was about a year project.
February, is that correct?
Yeah, we're projecting being substantially complete in Q1.
In the first quarter? Wow.
And Ms. Joy, on the water meter report, we get one of those every month, and I'm sure we can provide that to you.
Yeah, we track the water meter each month, just because it's the EUB, we pull the electric out, but we can certainly provide a water in similar format.
What's our percentage of water?
Off the top of my head, we're at 22,000, so just above 25%. Roughly.
I just had a question. We had the guys come to our house the other day. I think it was Saturday. They were very nice, very informative, and they had their identification on their arm band deals. And the only thing was we had 2 meters, and one of them they said they didn't have the right size. I'm not sure. Electric. So I'm not exactly sure. He needed a larger deal.
And we did just get a shipment of a lot of the larger size, and I'm going to guess it's either 12S or 16S type meter. Some of the field crews have yet to get them out of the warehouse, so although it's in inventory, they may not have had it in your crew crew, but they should be looping back around and putting in the other one now that we have inventory.
But the procedure is that somebody's got to be home for them to install it, right? Or they have to leave a.
If no one's home, they leave a door hanger and tell you that they either performed the repair or attempted the repair. If they cannot access the meter because your gate's locked or whatever, then they would ask you to make an appointment. But if they can get access to the meter, they will go ahead and make the change.
Okay.
I have a question. Looking at the map on the AMI deployment, I'm noticing some areas in my district, specifically east of I-27, around 82nd Street and all of that. There's a lot of gaps. What's the reasoning for that?
And I think you had left last month's meeting, because we talked about this a little bit last month as well. And I don't know, Andy, do you want to?
I did bring the chart, go ahead.
Part of it is just a problem with the zooming in of the chart when you're out so far. Each push pin isn't exactly 1 meter. So when they're tightly coupled together, they look like a single push pin on the map. And you won't be able to zoom into it. You have to zoom in to your specific area. And last month, we actually did zoom in because Andy had come to me prior to that meeting and said, are we not deploying in that area? So we did dig into it. Now, the further southeast was partly due to the commercial meters because that's a largely commercial area. And then we are scheduled to get back out heavily in that area in the routes that we have not done early November. So we will start filling that in. I did get a count of how many we have deployed on the east of I-27. What I don't have right off the top of my head is how many are out there. So I was going to try to compare the percentage between the area that you're asking about versus the rest of the city. But you know, the sequence is governed partly by geography, but also by trying to build out the mesh and some of the density areas as well. So we are getting close to really filling out in your area.
I know, because I know in my particular neighborhood, lots of folks have received them, but I'm not seeing the marking around what's going on. So I was just.
Yeah, and part of it's just a reporting on that map. You don't get the granularity. You have to zoom in a lot further.
Okay. I knew that you had been. I'm like, did you come back and take them? Or
and if you do want more, if you do want more detail, I would be happy to zoom into a specific area.
And just holler at me. Maybe we can sit in and kind of take a look at it.
I'll get through Matt and we'll get it to you.
Thank you. On the procedure for changing out the water meters, how is that handled? And by that I mean, are they knocking on the door? Is it required, or what's the procedure?
Do you want to answer?
Well, the procedure is that they should deliver a door knock in an attempt to notify the customer that they're in the area and going to be doing the exchange. And then they go do the exchange and come back around and let them know it's complete. If they're unable to do the exchange, they go back around and leave the door hanging.
Okay, and we're talking about the water meter, correct? Okay, and the reason I brought that up, when they were at my house, that there was no door, there was no knocking on the door. The reason I found out is the wife was opening up the water faucet in the kitchen. And surprise, guess what? No water. So I walked out to the front
Why they're
yard.
supposed to knock on the door.
Yeah, there was not. Now, I don't know if they're doing this to every house or not. I'm not making any assumptions. I'm just saying, in my house, it wasn't. So that may be something that needs to be visited or revisited.
And it is some,
I was going to say, did they leave a door hanger after they finished
Neither
the job?
one. They were changing the meter out. And I found out, again, because the water in our kitchen wasn't running. So I said, well, typical, let's go check the water meter. And they just happened to be out there. And to their defense, they were very polite, very cordial. And I did ask, weren't you supposed to knock on the door?
and the answer was?
Well, it doesn't take that long to do the job, so we just decided to do this.
I'll follow up on
So this is a training issue that we continue to chase with the specific installers. We reinforce the importance of it, but yes, it happens where if an installer doesn't do that, that's really in the report, the complaints section. We're keeping track of everybody that files a complaint that they didn't receive the right notification, and we are going back and holding them responsible for the procedure that they agreed to.
Now, and when they replaced the electrical meter, they did knock on the door, and they did everything that I would have expected them to do.
that's good news.
Yes, I like to share good news as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sure.
Question. So when we get to like 96, 98%, how hard is it to get the remaining 4%? You know, you leave the hook and you leave the calls back to set up a meeting and they just don't call, they just don't do it.
So, right now, when the cannot completes, once Itron has done their required amount of attempts, they come back to us as a return to utility. And then we have a process that we start going through to try to gain access and get in touch with that customer. You know, we make follow-up visits, we make phone calls, we have escalating letters of importance that you obligated by tariff to give us access to our meter and those kind of things. If all else fails, they will fall into a opt-out category where they opted out and we charge for it.
I figured you get to 98%, no call and it's paid or whatever, push it off the side, forget about it.
And you will be following up on those. I mean, the long tail, you're absolutely right. You get the easy ones and you tail off. But, you know, we're working those now, so we're not pushing them all to the end of the project either.
I see you got 264 banned dogs, so I'm going to take doggy treats out.
We'll make that.
They're not going to even have trees.
First day.
Okay, so on the customer information system project recap, which is on page 32 and 33, you can see the milestones, what's complete. We've made significant progress there. Project team is ahead of the planned test schedule. However, they've identified more issues than what they expected. But Oracle continues to be supportive and problems are being resolved pretty quickly. The Cooper Professional Services will require review and approval by the utility board, so they're in the process of establishing the scope of that interface work. They'll have to be written by Cooper. And as you recall, Cooper is the company that does the online bill pay and actually prints the bills for us and mails them out. So they're still working on the professional services agreement, and that'll be brought back to the board in December. That is potentially the pacing item on getting this project complete. Anything you want to add to that, Deborah or
No, that's
Jane?
exactly right.
Okay.
Unless there's any question.
We're still thinking we'll be complete second quarter of 2020, but it may be pushed out slightly from April, which is what we had been talking about, depending on these interfaces. And then on the commercial construction report, we've completed several jobs this month. And we've got some really big ones on the list. If you look at the KVA column there on the list, we can go down through there and look at the sizes of the KVAs that we're connecting. Got some big ones, including the WL Plastics manufacturing facility out at the Lubbock Railport. Very large new load coming on. Citizens Tire hopefully will be complete here pretty quick.
We will. Yes.
And so forth. So any questions on any of this other material? I will turn it over to Jason Avent for the 115 kV upgrade report.
Well, good afternoon, everybody. As promised in the previous meetings, we would have all of the 115 kV upgrade projects as well as the ERCOT integration projects for you today, and we have those we're going to walk through. So there's going to be quite a few more slides than typical. I think we went from 16 to just over 30, but every project does have a slide. A few things I want to call out ahead of walking through the presentation. One thing is going to be the financial reporting date. So it's going to be consistent with what we've shown you all in the past. It's going to match up with Andy's financial report. So that information is going to be prior to fiscal year 1920 budgets. So what you see in appropriated today in the overall budget is is going to be a little bit different with the budget reallocation that Andy's going to walk through after my presentation. So just kind of a heads up there, and at any time, if you want to walk through those, let me know. If I go a little bit too fast, please let me know and I can slow down or address any questions. But as before, I'm going to focus more on projects that are either in construction or have some constraints we want to talk through. So to kick it off, first off is Red Raider Station. Oh, one more thing, sorry. A slight reorganization of the projects. We've tried to reorganize based on construction start instead of construction completion, how we had it before. So we've brought forward a couple of the ERCOT projects as well, so those are going to be scattered throughout. And I did make one mistake in the overall ordering, and I'll point that out as I get to it. So apologies for that, but I'll identify it. Red Raider Substation hasn't changed from previous EUB meeting. It is virtually complete. We had a few T-line riser installations that had to be done on the T-line side in order to wrap up the station, and we're anticipating by next EUB, this project will be fully completed in service. Along with that is overall the Red Raider tap. The T-line activities are complete, and again, just on some underground risers to complete that project throughout. Other than that, no real updates. Everything's tracking along financially. The Slayton Substation in Ty. Last month we reported that we were near completion. We are wrapping it up now with punch list items. One big activity was all load was transferred from the old Slayton station to new Slayton, so everything went well there. Again, just wrapping up some punch lists. Vicksburg Substation. We are in active construction on this project. A few key dates. The WEG transformer, which did pass tests last month, is in delivery right now. We're anticipating it'll be on site tomorrow. We'll begin the jack and slide operation, so moving it from the trailer to the pad on Thursday, and then the subsequent fit out, testing and such of that transformer. Other than that, we're tracking in-service date as we were before, so no real big change on that project. A new project for the report this month is going to be the 345 line construction ERCOT interconnection. So this is the CCN activities as it relates to ERCOT. One thing that you're going to note during Andy's presentation, I just want to call this one specifically to your attention. $26 million in change is going to be reallocated or proposed to be reallocated to other SIP projects. So just be mindful of that. We're looking for a reduction down to $4 million. And that was part of the 1920 budget. So just a heads up, just want to point out some of the changes on this top row. A few key items that have changed from last month till now. Obviously CCN 1, Abernathy to, Ogallala to Abernathy was already approved just a couple days ago. They just been yesterday. Abernathy to Wadsworth, so that CCN number 2 was approved. So they began, Encore has right-of-way acquisition process on that project. So that is good news. I think we're tracking by the end of this year, CCN 3, and sometime February or Q1 of next year, CCN 4. So Encore is moving forward on those projects. So 92403 is Thompson to Vicksburg. A little bit of a hiccup there. Our contractor that was selected was having an issue with their bonds, getting everything signed as they should for Felix. They finally did get that in order and was blessed off by LP&L, so we'll be moving forward. So while there was a delay to the overall start of construction, after review by the team, the impact of the overall program with that slight delay, we didn't see any real big issue with that, so nothing bad to report on Thompson to Vicksburg. 92469 is Holly. This was my mistake. This is actually out of order. It should have been Oliver, so apologies for that, but I'll go ahead and touch Holly real quick. The construction request for proposal, we're looking to have them submitted. They were submitted for this board meeting, so you'll see that on the consent agenda. Other than that, everything's tracking well for Holly. We'll get that fixed for the next EUB meeting. 92404 is Northwest McKenzie. So one of the larger T-line projects that we have. Greenfield is obviously. This will be one that Andy will discuss. It needed a budget reallocation and actual increase, and that was mainly due to an increase in steel prices when this project was originally budgeted, as well as construction costs were higher than expected. We were looking for a December start date. We may slide that slightly just because of the holidays. We're still discussing that as a team. However, if we do decide to slide after the holidays, the overall impact to the completion of that project is not in jeopardy, so we feel confident or comfortable there. Kind of a sister project to Northwest McKenzie is Erskine and McKenzie. Same issue with the overall budget, slight increase that Andy will discuss. And we were originally thinking it'd be a December start. However, we shifted that. We discussed that last board meeting. It'd be a 1st of January construction start date. The endpoint for both of those T lines. Endpoint for both of those T lines is the McKenzie station. Only real update on McKenzie, everything's tracking well in regards to material procurement, budgeting, to grab you a drink. Only real big change is we're not looking to utilize the mobile that LPNL has. We're going to use an spare transformer to transfer the station load. Just an operations concern that was addressed there. Other than that, everything's tracking well with McKenzie. Southeast Oliver, a 115 line rebuild, 92,480. Similar issue of overall budget, structure increase, cost of the cost of steel, and construction costs were higher than anticipated, as well as an increase in contingency. Other than that, schedule-wise, this one is looking to be on track. No concerns at this time.
Maybe, so, just so I'm clear with what you're putting in here now, when you say there's gonna be a budget increase, does that mean you've reflected that in your funds remaining, or it will be reflected on the next cycle?
It'll be reflected in the next cycle. This is showing currently approved information.
Prior to the amendment, so.
Yes, sir, that's right.
All right.
One caveat to that is the cumulative forecast, anticipated monthly spend. Those two boxes do show the current full budget or anticipated budget. So that is a little different than what we're showing up at the top, which is the approved amounts.
Okay, so if you go back to Erskine McKenzie, page 45, your appropriation today and funds remaining, so you got 4.1 million, and then down in your graph, that looks to be about 2.5 million. Is that what you're saying? That should be more than the 4.1 million.
Yeah, the budget amendment will be moving that from 4.17 million to 4.62
Okay.
million. So
All right.
that's one of those.
Yeah, but the graph has the post number, whereas the schedule at the top is free. Right?
Right, yeah, the graphical information below is a true forecast.
Okay.
It's not limited by the current budget. It's their version of what is this project going to cost.
Okay. All right, just making sure I understand.
Yes, sir. We're going to skip back forward to 92,405, Chalker to Thompson. Chalker to Thompson will be another one that Andy will discuss. Its main concern was the anticipated construction cost and reworking the budget, see if there would be an increase need there. So that's what was identified. So we're currently tracking the construction RFP for December EUB approval. Again, shouldn't have any effect to the overall program with the latest project, slightly by 2 or 3 weeks. So no real issues or concerns on Chalker to Thompson. Next project, 19470. Again, this is one I had slightly out of order, so we are actually in construction on Oliver. We'll get it pulled back in the overall order of the list that you'll have for next month. Construction right now is on schedule, and really the only update on this project is pretty minor. We're adding an additional gate off of a side street just to make things safer for the operation or maintenance personnel to enter and exit that facility. A new project for this month is I'll skip the page, sorry. So it's the Oliver Station work. This is to accommodate the 115 lines. So as part of the participation agreement with Encore, we need to split out some of the capital improvements that LPNL is doing. So you're going to have the portion that LPNL is already having to do for the 115 conversion, and then the separate projects that you have to do in relation to bringing in or being able to accept the lines from Encore. And this is representative of that work to be accepting a new line. We pull out this graph that we'll go over a little bit later that Troy's going to walk through a little bit more depth. But as you see the new projects, I'll just briefly mention those, and Troy will give a more in-depth summary of that in a few minutes. Further, a little bit of information is lacking from the report this month. We'll get that trued up by next month. Sir?
Okay, so this one that you're looking at, this is in order to capture the T-costs? Or it's in order to capture T-costs, right? Is that right?
It's kind of, yes and no. It's kind of standalone from T-cost. Yes, we have to do this for T-cost, but however, it's for the participation agreement.
Okay.
So this is part of the big bucket that has to be split by Encore.
Between, yeah, okay, I got you. While I have you stop, can I ask you to go back to 92405, the Chalker and Thompson, there's a comment down there about construction, delayed construction due to underground utility obstructions. And maybe you mentioned that, what is the nature of the obstruction?
So originally this work was approved to be done by Plaska back in Q2, Q3 of this year. Due to some underground, well, whether it was fiber, whether it was suddenly whoever was underground that wasn't potholed previously, when those were identified by the team in the field, we decided to pull the construction contract away from Plaska, go back out to bid a later date. However, utilizing LPNL internal resources, go out and pothole every single structure. So you take a hydrovac truck, draw an X in the ground, and actually see what's underground to 5 feet, and move every utility or move structures. So because of those obstructions, this project had to get shifted out.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Any more questions on 664, the Oliver Station work? All right, next project is 477. It's going to be the Holly to Southeast 115 line rebuild. Everything's tracking well on this project. We did order or establish a PO last month with Valmont, so everything's moving well here. 473 is a new Oliver 115 station. So this is going to be the new 115 station to be built by Encore, to be owned by LPNL, and this is one that Troy will walk through in a minute. 407 is the Southeast project, a new auto transformer there. Overall, from a station-wise engineering moving forward as well as procurement, you will see a budget reallocation or increase by Andy on this one.
City council is now adjourned. Hang on.
.665 is the Southeast Station work, so similar to Oliver. This is to accommodate the new 115 lines. No real update there. 610. This is going to be the Abernathy to Wadsworth 345 line to be built by Encore. So main thing what we're trying to show on these pages is just the tracking from Encore, whether it's schedule as well as cash flow. We will add the items below at a later time of any issues that we see that Encore is tracking. But right now, no concerns. 464 is a new XFAB 115 station. One minor change to the notes, the TA has actually been approved, so the note down here of working on subsequent task authorization that has been approved, and we'll get that note updated for next month. We are working with XFAB on the overall location of that station, moving forward with procurement and design engineering or detailed engineering. So that project's moving forward well. Similar to Southeast and Oliver, the next project, 663, is the XFAB station work, so again, to accommodate the transformers. 474 is the North Station, so whether it be at XFAB or north of XFAB, this is the CIP established to accept whether it's the line or the transformers. I hope I said that right, Troy. But again, station work associated with Encore. .478 is the Holly to Slayton T-line rebuild. Here you're going to see a budget reallocation slight increase for steel and construction. One thing we are going to look to do here is not utilize the existing contract with Valmont, but go back out to bid on this one. So you may, hopefully you'll see that one next month for consideration. Last thing is we're working along with TxDOT on some of the rework that they're doing on the East Loop 289 and Highway 84, working with them on a crossing agreement. Right away is moving forward in both Holly to Slayton and Southeast on schedule. 92666 is a Wadsworth expansion. Again, similar to the other projects we talked about, the anticipation of the 115 lines or transformers is what this project is set up for. Well, actually, I misstated that. I apologize. So 92666 is the overall Wadsworth expansion project on behalf of Lovett. The next project, 475, is the anticipated reception of those transformers and lines. .662 is again with Wadsworth, and I misstated it. This is why we need Troy up here from time to time. It gets confusing for me as well. Apologies for that. But again, work is consideration with the Wadsworth station. To make it easier, we do have a map in a minute. 611 is the 345 line from Wadsworth to New Oliver to Farmland. This is a CIP set up for primarily the Wadsworth to New Oliver portion of that line. 2533 is a New Oliver to Southeast. So it's a new 115 line to be built by Encore, owned by LPNL. 661 is New Oliver to Oliver, same as New Oliver to Southeast. New 115 line to be built by Encore, owned by LPNL.
Just a question on several of these last two or three you've done, we're working with Encore on that, as opposed to Sureland. Has that been a good transition or working relationship with Encore? Is it better than with Sureland? Is it the same?
I'll let Troy speak in more detail. From what I've seen outside in, they've been very, very good to work with. I think they're doing as much as they can to make sure the relationship is held strong. They uphold their end of the bargain, or their end of the PA.
So it's been a positive transition and relationship on working on things together.
Yes. North to XFAB, in the event there are 115 lines associated with this project based on a CCN award, 526 is a placeholder for that work. And then the Abernathy to North to be for the 345 line portion of that based on, again, the CCN award on how far north is shifted to the south. And Troy will walk through that briefly in a minute. Voltage conversion, which is the next slide. We've had no change from the previous EUB meeting. So that is still consistent with what it was before. The overall program schedule has not pushed that or actually gained. It's been identical. The last slide, previous EUB meetings, we had a lot more on this slide. There's more LPNL owned assets. So if you remember the blue and red. Since we have created the new 16 plus slides, we've actually pulled those schedules from this report, and this is only the Encore owned projects. So these are, none of these projects would be considered to be owned at the end of the day by LPNL. So again, schedule update provided by Encore on September 27th is what's represented here. Any questions? I know that was a little longer than typical. Thanks for working through them with me.
Mr. Chairman,
this may be an Andy question. So basically by pulling all of those out, we're capturing the full CapEx for the 115 kV and our portion of all the interconnect. So we'll have a CapEx monitoring device for all of those, Andy?
Well, and you'll see,
project.
when we get to the budget amendment, this is gonna be a $0 overall change. We're really just reallocating dollars as the details become clearer. So I think we're just refining our, all the projects within our capital program. We had some really big placeholders for a long time, and now we'll be able to split those into individual known projects that we have the much better detail on today. So it'll provide a much better tracking. It doesn't really change the overall CapEx that we were anticipating.
Right, I mean, but this gives us all the pieces, so we can see as we march toward that, where we're shuffling the dominoes and getting going.
That's right, and it's in alignment with the participation agreement with Encore, so it now syncs up. When we put all these capital projects together before, we didn't have, that wasn't finalized completely yet. So it'll sync up to that, it'll help us in our reporting for the TCOS filing, multiple improvements to our program. So, does that answer your question?
It's good, that's what I thought you were trying to do. So when you get all these ones that are sort of blank this time, detailed cash flows are under development, when you get all those plugged in, we'll have all of the CapEx for all of the projects as we march towards completion of all.
And that's correct, and obviously Encore is spending a lot of dollars for us in reporting to those, and we're funding it, we're transferring dollars to them, so now, once they provide that information to us, it will sync up with our capital program, and it'll be much easier to navigate between Encore and LPNL and tracking all these expenses.
Which then will ultimately tie into the financial statements.
Yes, sir. Yep, that's correct.
Any questions or comments?
Mr. Chairman, I might just mention that on the Abernathy to Wadsworth CCN2, there's a public outreach meeting that Encore is holding on October 24th at the Centerpoint Event Center. That's where we had previously held some public meetings when we were doing before we called all the CCM cases. So that's mainly to just let the landowners that are affected come and talk about the project, hopefully try to get the right of entry forms at that meeting again. And so they had one on CCN1, but since we weren't involved in that line segment, I don't think anybody can go get on attendance, but we'll be in attendance at this one since we're on the line. And then, as Jason went through the slides on Wadsworth, there may be some changes to the dollars and the configuration, description, scope of work on all of those projects, depending on what we decide on the substation side. That's 345, more 115, things like that. So we'll sort all that out and get maybe another budget number required to get all that turned up final plan.
Questions, comments? Next, sir. That brings us to item number 9, financial capital statement discussion. Andy, are you here?
Yes, unfortunately for you, Ranu is not here today, so you're stuck with me. One thing before I start the presentation, though, I wanted to say this group sitting over here is a pretty spectacular group, and I wanted to really give them. I wanted to point it out to you guys. They come every month to the board meeting to answer your tough questions on the AMI and CIS project. But this group has been working countless hours, weekends, nights, days. They have really sacrificed their life to do what they can to make the AMI project and the CIS project be successful. And I really want, Tim Almond is from TMG, as well as Deborah Arline and Todd Stoker, who you see more often. And then, of course, Michelle Cook and Jamie Cook, who you know. Of course, they have a whole team working under them, a large team that's trying to make this all successful. But I just don't think they've gotten enough credit because if you've ever been involved with all the putting the ingredients together and mixing the batch and, you know, making the cookies, it's pretty messy until you get your first batch of cookies out. And I think they've done a spectacular job in cleaning up. They've done things that we don't see. I don't even see. And so I think to have 52,000 electric meters and 25,000 water meters installed for as little complaining as we've had, knocking on wood, I think we really, you know, I owe them a lot. So I wanted to highlight that. I wish the council was here to hear it too. Obviously, the project still has a long way to go. We still have lots of trials to face as we go and risk as far as timing on all of it. And so I just wanted to say that because they sit there very quietly and probably somewhat unappreciated, but they're very appreciated. So I just wanted to say that. Another thing I wanted to say is Ronu was supposed to be here today and unfortunately can't be. Joe was also supposed to be here today, Joe Jimenez. I promoted him to take the place of Chad Sales, and so he is now our financial planning and analysis manager. He was going to be here to present the budget today, but unfortunately he called in ill as well. So you got me for both items today. So I just wanted to take a moment to say all that because I do appreciate the staff that work for me. Okay, moving on. Income statement. Start off with the revenues. You'll see we're down about 29 million from this time last year. Of course, the bulk of that has to do with our lower power cost, and in turn, we're passing on lower costs to our consumers, which has made for a less upset in the community and fewer calls in the call center because we haven't seen quite as high bills this summer as we've seen in the past. But the bulk of that reduction is related to that reduced rates that we've been able to pass through this year. On the operating expense side, the big driver again is purchase power, which is down almost 26 million. We do have also a slight decrease in personal services, also decreases in our supplies and maintenance. Most of that being related to savings this year that we didn't spend on all the legal issues related to ERCOT and all the engineering required that we had spent so much of last year, and also the higher costs we incurred with Cooper last year that we didn't have to incur this year. So that saved us there as well. You go down to the non-operating expenses. Those expenses are lower this year than they were in the prior year. Most of that is because that section combines some earnings as well. We've had about 4.1 million of more interest earnings this year than we did in the prior year. So interest rates and higher balances in our investments have really contributed to that. We did have an increase in our interest expense related to the additional bonds, about 98 million of bonds we issued last year, but that's been more than offset with those interest earnings that we've seen this year. And then transfers are up, they're down this year compared to last year. A portion of that is the Citizens Tower. We aren't transferring as much this year as we did last year. Last year was a makeup year. But also the franchise fee and pilot transfers are down significantly, about 1.3 million from this time last year, just because of the drop in the revenues that we are collecting. So that does impact the general fund of the city as well. And then also about $1 million less in transfers to WTMPA as we continue to wind that relationship down. On the balance sheet, you'll see cash and investments are up significantly over the prior year, about $14 million increase. Most of that has to do with the over recovery and setting that aside for our Southwestern Public Service hold harmless payment coming due in June of 2021. Our receivables are down. They're actually down quite a bit. This time last year, they were almost 31 million. This year, at almost 27 million. A lot of that has to do with a little bit cooler temperatures and also the lower rates. So that has helped with our collections this year. Also restricted investments, which are our bond funds. When we issue bonds, we set those aside and spend those on those capital projects as they're being constructed. So we've spent almost $41 million. And then you can see on the capital assets have increased by about $46 million this year from this time, from the September year end. On the liability side, deferred revenues related to our over recovery on the pass-through is about increased about 21 million. To date, we have about 33.4 million in our pass-through over recovery and about 1.6 million in franchise fees that will be submitted to the city once we realize those revenues in the future. Customer deposits continue to increase. That had to do with the change we made last year in the tariff. So that's up a little bit over the prior year. And then bond payables are down since we did not issue debt this year. We didn't have new debt coming on, but we did have our principal and interest payments that came due that reduced our overall outstanding balances on our bonds. As you know, we do have a $300 million revolving line of credit with Bank of America, but we've only drawn to date about $2 million on that revolver. So that'll grow substantially as these projects that Jason talked about really kick off into very high gear. And as Encore continues to spend on those projects, since they're just now in right-of-way acquisition, once construction begins, that'll really ramp up very quickly. Cash flows, cash from operating activities, which is really our key source of cash generation. You see about an increase of about 11.8 million in August. That's up about 3 million over the prior month, but for year to date, about 68 million. Our cash flows from financing activities, about 9 million out in August to date, about 100 million out. Most of that is related to our capital purchases, almost 62 million, and then about 31 million in principal and interest payments on debt make up the other large piece of that. And then cash flows from investing, about 4.7 million in August, but about 46.5 million for the year to date. That's where we're spending those bond funds on the purchase of those capital assets. So overall, cash increased for August about 7.3. Year to date, it's up about 14 million. So total cash at the end of the year, as I mentioned on the balance sheet before, was about $101.5 million. When you look at the budget comparison, we're well within budget. I expect that we'll end the year probably about 94% of our overall budget. That excludes purchase power. If you pull purchase power out, overall our cost centers and fund level expenses will be about 94%. But you can see, for the most part, we're well within budget and actually a good bit below where we saw ourselves this time last year. The big driver, again, is purchase power. We didn't anticipate purchase power would come down quite as much as it did this year, but due to the natural gas reductions and also due to the new contracts that we're under beginning June 1st, it's really saved us a significant amount of money. So that finishes my presentation on the financials. Any questions?
Questions there?
Eddie, the only question, when are you going to reallocate that for revenues?
We will set aside the 24 million. Really, we were authorized to do that as of October 1. So in next year's financials, you'll see that shift in our balance sheet.
Yeah, you mentioned that.
Yes, sir. I'm sorry, one thing I failed to mention, during the meeting today, I got an email from Standard & Poor's. We've been working with them for the last several weeks on an update to our rating, and they did affirm our AA- rating, which we did have some concerns that they were going to drop that rating to a single A. But we've been working pretty hard with them to gain their confidence in our plan and what we have going forward. The rating just hit the press a few moments ago, so I think I can officially talk about a few of the items within it. As you know, last year, they had affirmed our AA- rating, but they did put us on a negative outlook, which typically means you have about a 1 out of 3 chance of having a downgrade within the next couple of years. And they did that based on, there's some uncertainty, there's a large debt, load coming on in the future. There's one metric that they really focus on where they look at coverage and they impute our purchase power costs. They convert some of that like a debt-like instrument, and so when they do that, it shows our it's called a fixed charge coverage, is a little bit lower than they'd like for a AA rated utility. But in our forecasting, especially in the retail choice version, we see our coverage ratios getting significantly higher and more into the line of where they would like to see a AA rated utility. So, of course, they're still taking a little bit of a wait and see approach, which direction we end up going. And so they did luckily leave us there. Some of the comments they did make, they pointed out our very strong enterprise risk profile, which kind of goes to the economy. It also goes to the industry that we're in. We're a low risk industry. And then also strong financial risk profile that they highlighted. They said they consider the financial management practices to be very strong, as evidenced by a scenario-based multi-year financial projection that is updated annually. They did, even though they have concerns with our coverage, they did point out that we do still have strong coverage metrics, because whether you're a single A or AA rated utility, you're still very highly rated. They also pointed out our strong liquidity. Of course, our cash is up significantly over this time last year. And then they did also point out somewhat negatively our, they called it vulnerable debt and liability profile, just due to the fact that we do have a significant amount of debt coming on in the next couple of years. But they did caveat that by saying at least 60% of the system's future debt burden will be transmission related, and it will be accompanied with a return on investment. So finally, they acknowledge that. We've been trying to get them to acknowledge that for some time. So again, they were very positive. I felt they also pointed out another area that we've been trying to convince them of for a long time is our financial models are very conservative, and so I know that it doesn't seem like they're used to seeing as conservative as models as we put out. And they did finally acknowledge that we were able to prove up over the last several years how much below budget we've come in, not only on an operating standpoint, but also on a capital standpoint. So once we've proven that, they did make a comment that said we acknowledge the utility's historical conservative budgeting practices, which could result in better than projected results. So overall, I was very happy with it, mainly just because I was really afraid we were going to get a downgrade, which I thought would have been unfair based on all the positive movement that we've had in our financials over the last several years and the good direction that I think we're going. But I think they acknowledge that in this ratings report. So I'm pleased to present that they affirmed our AA- rating.
Good job there.
Yeah.
Other questions or comments?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
I will tell you that you guys have a tremendous resource in Andy Burcham and the job that he puts together in responding and providing information to the rating agencies. I don't know if any of you have ever been through one of these ratings reviews, but it's it's pretty stressful, and Andy always puts together great information packets that has established credibility over a long period of time, because they know that he's providing conservative information to come back later and we show that, yeah, those targets were met and exceeded. And so he's a tremendous resource, and he does a great job. And then also Matt Bowles, our financial advisor with RDC, does a tremendous job as well. The first call that we had with S&P did not go well. We thought, we were pretty convinced at that point in time that we were going to get downgraded, and Matt just lit into it. He read them the right act on the phone, and I don't know if that had any impact on their changing their minds or not, but he basically accused them of moving the goalpost on us, because a lot of the things that they asked us to do last year, we actually did. We moved in the direction that they wanted us to go, and so they were kind of telegraphing that they were going to get down through. Andy does a great job, and Matt does a great job in negotiating with these guys and keeping the rating. And what does the rating mean? Well, it's a few basis points in your debt issuance at some point. When we fix this debt out, it will mean a few basis points if we're able to keep this rating.
Mr. Bertram, I'm going to ask you to speculate for a minute, because I'm thinking back about 5 years when we were talking about the RFP and the CapEx that would have been needed to build a plant, either a combined cycle, single cycle plant. And if we had done that, we had done the combined cycle plant that was sort of on the track at the time, what do you think our debt, what do you think our rating would be?
Well, I think it'd be substantially different. I do. I think we would have seen downgrades. the beauty of the ERCOT decision is that the debt that we're issuing comes along with a revenue stream. If we'd issued debt for the power plant, it wouldn't have been associated with a revenue stream. And again, it would have, the other beauty of ERCOT is we have a diversified portfolio of power. Building, the combined cycle unit that we were looking at was putting all of our eggs in the natural gas basket. And so the things that the rating agencies have, really highlighted is the diversity, the lowering risk of getting out of the purchase power business eventually. That revenue stream, luckily they've highlighted that now. And because they were so hung up when we first started this conversation with them on the debt coming, even though we've been telling them the last 3 or 4 years that debt is coming, and every year we tell them, well, but remember, we've never applied for a TCOS revenue in the past. This time they finally acknowledged that, and I think that did help. But I think all of those things together have helped us maintain a rating. Moody's has told us that, even though we're an A+ rated with them, they say we really act like and operate like a AA rated utility. They're just not willing to make any moves until everything's final. I mean, we're still in there's a lot of risk still in our move to ERCOT. I mean, there's a lot of things, and I think once we're there, once we've settled it, and the lines are constructed, we're interconnected, I think the rating agencies will breathe a big sigh of relief, and I think we'll see some upward movement even after that's all in place. I think we have upward pressure once everything's been done. That's my speculation.
I agree completely. I appreciate your comments on what I asked you to speculate on. It's good to remind ourselves occasionally why we made these decisions, and we get focused now on getting all the blocking and tackling done. But it's good to go back and say, this is going to come together. This is going to be what we do. So, yes.
Just a question of history. What was the tipping point where back then deciding to not go with building that? Was it just uneasy? Was it the grace of God? Was it everybody picking hard?
Yeah, ultimately it's an economic decision. We didn't get there all at once, but there was that was a long period of evaluation and study. But it was ultimately just a easy. I mean, if we had done that, the ratepayers of Lubbock would have had to pay for the whole 9 yards, for the roughly $800 million once capitalized interest was thrown in to do a combined cycle plant, as well as paying for all of the ongoing operation.
So it was really to spend money and have revenue coming in,
Right.
as opposed to just
Spending money and raising rates and all.
We're ever getting to reanalyze this thing 6 ways.
6 ways to Sunday.
We hired outside,
Right.
Black and Beach and a bunch of other people.
To rank all those proposals, the 42 something.
It's just nice to have the backstory on making that good decision.
If we had gone, we would still have the top of the line best new,
Fanciest, best.
We got them to recycling everything and doing everything right because we're turning the forces. So even if we, wrong, we're going to get at the top of it.
Thank you very much.
And that was another factor. You lock yourself into a generating plant long term, it may become technically obsolete within a very short period of time. You still got debt load on it, but you don't have an asset that's worth anything.
I think too, a primary driver, that was you coming on board, because you brought a different perspective and you've been involved in the ERCOT markets. We came to the realization that having, that there's so the dynamics in our industry are such that having long-term contracts and long-term commitments to a power plant that would be state-of-the-art for about 12, 15 minutes, and we'd be stuck with that debt for God knows how long. So, Dave was on a lot of credit, bringing his wisdom and he asked us a lot of questions. We talked about it, the pros and cons, and over time, we all came to realizations, oh my gosh, we should not build this big
Full
old
well,
plant. Oh,
We just didn't know ERCOT was gonna be as hard as it was.
Right.
It'll take as long.
Any other questions or comments?
Are any of your, do you have any sons that are on the ERCOT board, by the way?
No other questions or comments? Andy?
That's it.
That's it. All right, thank you, sir. Item 10. Where are you going?
Yeah, I'm 10, I'm trying to get to move.
Item 10 is to consider a budget amendment for budget capital improvement projects, 92464, 92473, 92475, 526, 533, 609, 610, 661, 662, 663, 664, 666. Got a motion? Need a second? A second. Entertained.
Okay, this is the first of two budget amendments you have before you today. The first one will actually be one that will be referred to the City Council for their approval. The second one, number 11 in the moment, will just need to be approved through the EUB. This project, or this amendment, does impact a total of 13 projects. It is amending 7 projects and it's establishing 6 brand-new projects. A lot of them are what Jason highlighted in his presentation today. There's also a non-capital item in this budget amendment that includes the reclass of a vacant engineering assistant to a project specialist within that department to help out in that area. But wanted to point out that this is a $0 change overall budget amendment. As I mentioned earlier, a lot of the projects early on, we had some placeholders. We knew roughly what the costs were expected to be, but since time has moved on, and most of these have to do with the Encore-related activities, so we're shifting some of the dollars from those big pots of money to the actual projects where we anticipate the real need. There's been, a number of things, since we proposed these originally. The CCNs are, for the most part, refined. The division of the scope of work between LP&L and Encore has been, also defined, and so that's helped us here. So you'll see shifting projects, and I have a map that I'm going to do my best to go over. Y'all have seen this before, and I know you can't read any of that, but most of that shows all the different stations and lines that are part of the integration into ERCOT project. And two of those, the first project, the one I just circled in green, is for OW, a project for OW, which was approved by ERCOT. It requires that there are 2 115 kV feeds into the existing loop. And so that's what this line, that new Oliver to Oliver line, is doing. And so we're moving about, I believe that one's the one we're moving 14 million from this project, the northwest to Oliver to southeast line. We're moving 14.7 million from this project to this project in this amendment. There are a couple of other projects. The two to the right are two different scenarios. It's basically the same project. And then the one on the right with Wadsworth. These projects are going to be required now. These are new projects. They're going to be required to tie the existing station to the 345 kV feeds. That'll be to accommodate the auto transformers in those two locations. The projects in red is the same issue, except it's just to accommodate the 115 kV lines that are going into those stations. And then finally, in that yellow, the Wadsworth expansion is a project that Jason talked about a little bit ago, to allow 2 345 to 115 kV transformers at Wadsworth. So those are the new projects that are, I'll go back to the original slide. The new projects are 92661 and below. So all of those with the $0 to begin with and the new money. So we're basically transitioning money out of those top 3 into those bottom 6 projects. There are a few other projects. There's 4 other projects that we're only changing either the title or the scope or justification of the project. There's no dollar change on those, but those are all provided in your backup. So that basically covers what we're doing in this amendment.
Actually, be subject to, I guess, subject to approval and then subject to change based on confirmation from EC.
Yeah, my understanding is if there's any change in the CCNs, or once we move a little bit further forward, there may still be some amendments to some of these. And obviously, time is still marching forward, and costs are still being refined on these projects. And so, I'm not saying that we won't have more budget amendments. We still may have some. We do have contingency in these projects still. It's a little narrower than it has been in what we originally anticipated, but we still have a good bit of contingency still on all of the uncorrelated projects. Do you have anything, Charlie, you want to
If you go to the map real quick. Those amendments, real quick, what happened is another reallocation of same total, but reallocation.
That's correct. We try to reallocate as long as we can, and if ultimately we need additional funding, we would need to identify how we fund that in our capital program.
So there's two areas we know that there's potential risk for either renaming or rescoping the projects based on the CCNs. The largest of the two is the fourth CCN, Abernathy to North. It has two different scenarios. In each of those, the overall dollar impact is relatively the same from the CCN perspective and LPNL's budget perspective. We just don't know where the scope's going to end up, whether it's a big, long 345 line or if it gets cut halfway in between getting to XFAB. So those two different scenarios will play a big role in it. And the other part, as David mentioned earlier, was there's some work we're having to look at Wadsworth Station and how that project gets broken up with regards to scope.
That's all I have on this one.
All right, any discussion? No, we had a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed, about the same? Done. Number 11, budget amendment, capital improvement projects 92, 380, 404, 405, 406, 460, 407, 462, 474, 478, 611. Motion to consider these.
This is a very similar budget amendment. Again, it's a reclassification of dollars from the two top projects among all the others below. Chocolate Oliver is basically coming under budget by about $1 million. And then the Wadsworth to New Oliver to Farmland Transmission Line, we had some excess in there that we are comfortable moving to these other projects that have had increases. I know Jason went over some of that has to do with price increases on steel and some other various increases. So each project in and of itself isn't a significant increase, but overall, you can see we're shifting, but the total dollar value stays the same. So this one doesn't have to go to the council because the dollar transition is the same, and we're not creating any new projects, and we're not changing any of the scopes or changing any of the names. But most of these, all but one, deal with the 115 kV conversion, or going from the 69 kV to 115 kV. All of that is related to that, really, except for the Wadsworth, that second line there, which was is one of the Encore related projects. So that's all I have on that one.
Any discussion there? All right, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, by the same. No one passes. Very done. Item 12, so item 13. Consider resolution recommending the city council delegate authority to the director of utilities or his designee to purchase real property which is necessary for construction of 115 kV upgrade capital group projects 92, 469, 92, 470, 466, 477, 478, and 480. Any motion? The motion, need a second?
Mr. Chairman, we're moving to the other transmission lines. Of course, we've been focused on obtaining right-of-way from Northwest McKenzie for quite some time, and that one is winding down. But we do have other capital projects where we'll need land, real property interests, and so that's we're proposing a slightly different strategy, which Jenny, I think, is going to talk about. But so the projects listed there, which many of which you've seen in the data up here, are the ones that we're going to be working on, mainly the Holly to Southeast, Holly to Slayton. That's the two big lines that we know we're going to need additional real property interest on. In some cases, we've got And all these are rebuild projects, so we've got existing lines there. But we found in some cases, we've got 10-foot wide easements. Well, that's probably not adequate if you include blowout and things like that. So we're gonna have to obtain some additional easements to cover us going forward for the next 40 years. And then Southeast Oliver is the other one. May require either expanded easements or additional real property interest. In some cases, lines will be, the route may be adjusted slightly, in which case we need new easements. So it's kind of the purpose. I'll let Jenny talk about the approach.
Yeah, and as you will recall, we did this on the Locust Mackenzie line, and there's delegate authority to volunteer. And so this is a very similar delegation that we also need to go to the city council, so the city of but the difference here, the dollar parameters are the same, but the difference is, as Mr. McCullough was mentioning, the approach. Initial offers will be based on a market study approach, which is more, there's a description of that as Exhibit A in the book to the city council resolution, a draft resolution. But that market study approach is a more sort of efficient way to do the initial offers. And then final offers under the Illinois statute would be made based on site-specific appraisals. So the approach is laid out that way to account for both of those dollar figures.
Questions?
This approach is consistent with the way Sheridan acquired right away. It's consistent with the way Encore is going to acquire right away with their lines. And so kind of transitioning into this approach, we think it's going to be much more efficient, as Jimmy said.
There's no questions, take a vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed, by the same? Approved. Item 14, consider and take possible minute action related to the place of a regular EUB meeting on November 18, 2019. Roll call. Right, we're gonna set that so we can follow up.
We do need more action.
Any motion? Motion to approve. Okay, then we'll discuss. So, approve all last month.
Because this furniture may not be here next month, Worksource is going to plan on taking it with them and they own the furniture. It's been nice when we've been able to share it. It's been nice last year so far. So what we thought we would do, and since we're not sure that Citizens Tire, regardless of Mr. Mason goes coming, we're not sure it'd be ready for move-in in November, so we thought a good approach would be just to have the next board meeting out at the Hill. We've got a good meeting room out there. It's not quite this large, but pretty close, and so we can arrange the boardroom the way that we are used to sitting. Maybe I'll come out to the Hill for one meeting at least.
Can we not just, and in this question, can we not just approve, that's what we're gonna have the EUB meetings going forward until we get into, the new facility, rather than coming back every month, being like, where's it gonna be, set standard, charge?
At this point, Mr. Chair, because it was posted for the location on November 18th, we need to just proceed with the location on November 18th.
You can take care of it, November.
Take care of it November, if that's the case.
It's gonna be very nice, I toured the place with Rennigan.
Oh, you're coming to
It's Howard, but I don't see it happening. It's gonna be nice when we get there and everything else, but I think we need to make sure we have a plan for what's gonna be going forward.
No, I'll make a note of that.
Okay.
Let me interject something here while we're discussing this. For some reason, I put on my calendar we were gonna have the November meeting on the 12th, which was a week early. The 18th?
We decided on the 18th, even though I wanted the 20th.
The 18th is a Monday.
That's what I was saying.
The 19th.
Okay, well,
There's a conflict on the 19th.
So it was either gonna be the 18th or 20th. Those were kind of our two deals, we went on the Monday.
I was the majority of the.
They could have council still has to come in.
I think you might have had an issue.
right, I've got another meeting that day, but I've cut off on late after. So maybe I just forgot to change my calendar. There you go. So.
Mr. Chairman, do we need to, given that, in December, we may still be in the same option, should we have November 18th and the December one there? I'm just wondering, or just wait till we get to November and see where we are.
Okay.
You better wait and make sure you like the place.
Well,
we don't
no,
need it.
today we just need to decide for November
in favor for having it at the Hill on November 18th, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed, by same.
Will that be the same start time, regular start time? Okay, so I'll just,
Wendy, you'll send us out a,
Yes, tomorrow.
okay.
Is there an address?
402 Municipal Drive. 402 Municipal Drive.
very well, I'll be late to that meeting.
Good.
Greg, I'll fill in for you and I'll say what I think you understand.
Okay.
Your arm again.
Brings us to the consent agenda. Is there any items there that like to be pulled separately? If not, that takes us to motion for items 15 through 20.